you check the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil, Laird.
Jason Greer.
That's right, we are joined by a new face here on the Horror Show. Jason has become a fast friend of the show. We met in person about a couple months ago at
July.
Mad Monster, right, in July, yes. And we had been in contact even previous to that, which I had not particularly remembered because Jason is one of the early supporters of Dylan's New Nightmare. Yeah. And I greatly appreciate that, first of all.
Dude, so excited.
But yeah, so Jason and I got to talking when we were at Mad Monster and sitting in a line for quite a while to get a signature from Nev Campbell.
Yes.
And did that experience go the way you wanted it to go, by the way?
Oh, yeah, it was awesome. You know,
Yeah.
you kind of expect the lines, but Nev was awesome.
Nev was really cool. Yeah, she
yeah.
was really, really neat. And she had a line the entire time and was one of those people that was like, if there are people here, I'm going to make sure to see them.
Oh,
so,
yeah, no, she talked to everybody, very gracious. Yeah,
Yes,
so good
indeed.
experience, A+ for sure.
Beautiful, beautiful. But in speaking with Jason, he clearly demonstrated a knowledge, at least insofar as I have knowledge of film, experientially and by watching a lot of them. And, you know, everyone's experience is a little bit different, but Jason, like I said, had a knowledge and was able to articulate his position on things. So I wanted to invite him on the channel to talk about a movie that doesn't deserve someone that knows how to articulate their positions on film.
Yes.
What are we here to talk about, Jason?
Oh, we're here to talk about Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Yes, indeed. And we are going to do this review like we normally do. We'll start with our overall thoughts, then we'll go into the story, the acting, the effects. We'll keep it all spoiler-free, but I am going to defer to you first, sir. So what are your overall thoughts for this one?
So, okay, so yeah.
Everyone, inhale.
Yes. So, okay, so let me preface this by saying that I rewatched Jeepers Creepers 1 just to kind of refresh my memory. It was kind of like a thing growing up, so I really liked that well, I liked it growing up on rewatch. It still holds up, you know. It's a classic in its own right.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like
it and the second one, personally, I believe so.
it's been such a long time since I've seen the second one, and I didn't even bother with the
No,
third one.
I don't think you needed to for this by any stretch. All the homages were strictly for the first one anyway.
Yeah.
But I personally do really enjoy the second film in the franchise.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. But as far as this film goes, so I didn't necessarily have high hopes, but you know, I was still gonna check it out. Obviously, it was rough. So
He's trying to be so polite his first time on camera. For this show, anyway.
yeah. So overall, there were certain parts that were, I guess, you know, didn't make me want to jump off a cliff, but. It's kind of hard to articulate exactly.
So let me offer my sentiments on it, which were basically after I walked out. I've seen some people already reviewing this film, giving it a 0 out of 10, or saying, is it the worst movie ever? By far, this is not the worst movie ever. This is not the worst movie ever. This is a completely functional horror film. Does that mean it's a good horror film? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. There are a lot of things that this movie does not do correctly, but it's not a broken movie. You know what I mean? It's like, to me, a movie has to be fundamentally broken for it to earn a 0 or be dubbed the worst movie ever. This is not that. This is just a very bad movie.
Right. Yeah. So no, it had through lines and certain things that, you know, that were introduced and then paid off ish.
And then stuff that was introduced and not paid off
exactly.
at all.
Yeah. Everything was very tangential, to use your word. Yeah. So yeah, overall rough, but there were things that, I mean, I think people of the franchise will like. You know, I think that there are hardcore fans out there, and it's just like any any film. You know, like Halloween. Sometimes if you're a fan, you're just happy to get a movie.
Yeah, no, you know, that's fair. And there probably will be a contingent of that. Like, we might be a couple of nitpickers when it comes to this film, but I don't think so. I do think that this film, while not fundamentally broken, it does have some serious fundamental shortcomings. So let's dive into the story just real quick. So the story of this, without spoiling, again, we're not going to be spoiling this, but the film in the very beginning apes heavily from the very first Jeepers Creepers film, to the point where it's like, what was even the point of that?
Right.
You know, it's like, I get it. Like, I get that we're seeing something very familiar, but they don't even bother paying that particular thing off.
No.
And then the rest of the film is this movie's attempt to reboot the franchise and do things differently. The first of which being, let's show the creeper all the time.
That was one thing that
All
I
the
noticed
time.
right off the bat. I'm like, man,
We introduce him, you see him
Yeah.
all the time.
they're not leaving much to the imagination.
Nothing.
I had this argument with my friend yesterday. We're talking about
Okay.
monsters.
Okay.
And you just, yeah.
Jaws set the standard, right?
Yes.
1975. You don't need to see it to know and be scared, and know it's there and be scared of
Right.
it. This was completely the opposite.
Yeah, there was, I mean, there was no split lighting. He wasn't even in shadow. It was just like, I'm here.
Strict daylight. Not only that, but like well, you know, I don't want to spoil exactly how they present him. There is a little bit of an evolution of the character design, at the
Yeah.
very least, you can say. And, you know, they're trying to do something kind of new, but in doing so, they take away so much of the mystique of the creeper by having it just be a mysterious thing in an overcoat with a hat, you know, like to try and blend in. Like, they try and make the discovery of the outfit a thing, but it's like at the same time not a thing at all. It's
No,
just
it was super weak, and I feel like they forget that he has such a cool silhouette. You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
That's where you should introduce the hints of actually seeing him. And
They
yeah.
made a lot of the same mistakes that Part 3 made, which you didn't see Part 3, but a lot of Part 3 took place during the daylight. And you take away a lot of the scariness of the creeper when you feature him during the daylight. This is done again in this film quite
Right.
a bit. And it doesn't work any better in this one than it does in 3. I will say that having watched both 3 and this when they first released, I've seen some people say this is worse than 3. I don't know that I can say this is worse than 3. Myself, I really disliked 3. At least 3 had the original creeper Jonathan Breck playing the character, but it was such a mess and a complete waste of time. This felt like a little bit less of a waste of time than Part 3, to me. But that doesn't mean it's worth anyone's time. It just means it wastes a little bit less time than the other one. And they tried to introduce their own aspects of the lore while still trying to, I guess, quote unquote, respect aspects of the original lore. And the problem is when you're trying to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one.
Right.
Because there's not enough development with the new lore, and there's not enough touching on the old lore. And so it's like they just tickle the underside of your balls just a little bit, and then that's it.
Oh, I gotcha. It's very disappointing.
What did you think about the acting in the film? Because this was a big issue.
Yeah, no, this was, I think, the biggest issue. Is I feel like an actor can really make or break a role, and the lead, especially for me, it was just really rough. It was everything was surface level. I don't feel like anybody really had any character development, and it was just
Felt a lot like my first movie situation with all of them.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, exactly. And then everything is very surface level, and I just felt like they were switching emotions so constantly that it was really hard to grip onto one single thing that they were feeling, and I wasn't even sure what they were feeling half the time.
The reasons for people making those emotional and character-driven shifts were so underplayed and so they were undeveloped, where none of the decisions or the changes that the characters made along the way made sense. Where it's like, how did we suddenly get here?
Yeah,
Like,
it just had no foundation.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. It was just like, oh, because the dialogue says so.
That's
Well,
exactly
that's not
it.
good
Yeah,
enough.
right, because he said so. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah,
so.
there's a lot of tell, not show in this movie.
Right. But at the same time, I mean, a lot depends on the script, but I feel like a good actor can take a crappy script and make it, palatable. And it was not the case in this.
Sometimes, I mean, if it's like Sharknado level dialogue, that's hard to make good.
But if you're trying to be campy, that's one thing. But
True.
They weren't. I don't think that's what they were going
Right,
for.
this was not self-aware
Right.
bad.
No, not at all.
This was not self-aware bad. This was an earnest attempt at being a scary reboot of the Jeepers Creepers franchise, and it was not successful.
And it was not scary.
No, not scary in the least. And you know what? That's even the furthest criticism I had, outside of it being just a waste of time and a unoriginal film, yeah, it wasn't scary in the least bit.
Yeah,
Like-
there was one moment where I saw someone else jump. Right?
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't even recall seeing anyone else jump. I mean,
It was
the weapons are reused. We
Right.
see the axe. We see the
little
literally. I have one right over here. We see his Shuriken or Shoryuken or whatever the hell you want to call it. The throwing star, the creeper throwing star. We see a lot of these, but it's overused now.
Yeah.
Like there was one of these in Jeepers Creepers 2, I think. That's what took the bus tire out, if I'm not mistaken. Because it's cool, because it's got the
so
human
so they're
tooth
trying to
in
make
there.
it like his trademark, right?
Yeah, right. That's the thing. One
Right.
of these took out the bus tire in part 2. And then, like, all of a sudden...
It's like Freddy putting on his glove now.
Yeah, well, there's a horror festival in the film.
Oh,
and
yeah.
one of the guys, there's like an axe throwing thing, and he's got like a shitload of these just like laying there like, yeah, I make them after what the creeper supposedly uses. It's like, motherfucker, how would you know that this is what the creeper uses if he's like lore and everything like that? And then, I don't know, it's just, there's a lot of weird choices that don't make sense. Whether in the story of Jeepers Creepers Reborn or even in reference to the older movies. Like the decisions they made were odd all along the way and didn't jive with everything that had been done thus far.
Wait, I didn't even recognize this thing, so for me, I was like,
Oh.
okay, yeah,
Yeah,
so
no,
if
so
that's
that-
how little it was used. I guess that
There's
makes
a
sense.
shit ton of these, yeah, in the new movie, and it's like, why? Like, he's supposed to be innovative and interesting, and luckily the movie was short.
Yeah.
It did not keep us there for much longer than an hour and a half. It couldn't have been longer than 95 minutes.
No, it was even less than that.
It had maybe 85 even.
Yeah, it was like 80,
because
85
we cruised through it pretty quickly, and thank goodness for that, because I didn't care about anyone. The acting didn't win me over. The sound design and everything was fine. The music I didn't even notice.
Right.
But the effects, we do need to talk about the effects.
Absolutely.
Because there are some things about the effects. I will say that even before we get to that, the production design, there were hints of interesting, and then no follow through on the interesting. Like the Creeper's home base, we get hints of things, then we never actually get any follow through like we did in the original series.
Yeah, I mean, I thought some of the cinematography was cool, and they had, some of the things when they've got the smoke going and all that. It looks cool.
Underwhelming though
Yeah,
overall, and it
absolutely.
wasn't used. The cinematography wasn't used to any particular effect.
No.
Like the shots might have been pretty, but it wasn't. There wasn't necessarily meaning behind them
generic.
choosing that shot. Right.
Yeah, no.
The effects, though, we do have to talk about the effects because there were both practical and green screen effects.
Yeah.
Lots and lots and lots of green screen effects.
Oh, yes.
So, what are your thoughts on these?
So the green screen effects, green screen's tough. I just feel like they didn't do very good on matching the lighting. That was like a big thing. If you're gonna do effects, you have to have practical lighting on set, so that way it all kind of meshes together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so clear that it's a green screen,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone's going, "Oh, that's a green screen." And it's very obvious. And even like the sky replacement and stuff they did, it just felt very. It was too much. Like,
It was
wasn't natural.
really rough. And like at one point, there's an object that they clearly didn't have a fabricated version of this object, or when an object gets thrown at one point, it literally looks like a piece of clip art that they just are animating
Right.
as it gets
Just keep
thrown
framing it,
somewhere.
yeah.
It's so ridiculous. Honestly, it just turns what might have been a semi-serious moment into complete ghastly ridiculousness. It's just so badly comped. The green screen was just atrocious in this film.
Yeah.
The practical effects at times were okay, though.
Yeah.
At times were okay. So there was some practical gore, there was some practical body parts, some practical blood, and then a practical creeper suit that, I gotta be honest, was pretty trash in my opinion. It looked like, outside of the extreme close-ups when you had to see the eyes, it felt like it was just a bad mask most of the way through. Just a bulky, ugly mask that was not anywhere near as intricate or alive looking as the original
There was
creeper
no
design.
movement.
No,
Yeah.
there really wasn't. I mean, outside of the mouth and the eyes, Like, there's no extra movement. The little fucking shit, the Dilophosaurus fan out shit that he does. That's, by the way, saved as a, ooh, look at this transformation at the end of the film in the original series.
Right.
Was not, you know, nearly saved for that kind of interestingness in the reboot. You know what I mean? It was just there from the beginning, so it takes away from the cool somehow.
Yeah, and, well, like, it's the same thing. They just put everything out there in the first 3 minutes of the movie in terms of, you know, what he looks like and what he has to offer, and so there's nothing new
Yeah,
to
so...
be excited about.
So there you go, guys. I think that pretty much covers everything that there is to talk about spoiler-free about Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Is it the worst film ever? No. But is it worth your time? Definitely not. Definitely not.
Save your money.
It's not good, and if it pops up on a streaming service for free down the line, give it a go, see what you think. But if you didn't like 3, you're not going to like this. It's nowhere near the level of 1 or 2. It's another failed reboot, but it's not the worst movie ever, like some people are saying. But it is bad. It is bad.
Yeah.
So.
It's bad.
So thank you, Jason, for joining me on
Yeah.
this review. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. Jason, do you have anything coming up that you want to let the audience know about?
Yes. So I started a podcast recently. It's called the Creepy Reader Podcast.
Okay.
It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and it's going to be premiering on October 3rd. So if you guys like horror books, please feel free to go check it out on Instagram at the Creepy Reader Podcast.
Perfect. By all means, do so. Jason, again, has good opinions on everything. He's knowledgeable. He researches. So I am of the opinion that I think it's going to be very much worth your time to check it out. Thank you guys very much again for watching this. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
Jason Greer.
And remember, stay scared.
I'll stay scared.
That works.